both reappointments to the Motor Vehicle Commission Board, but I will take these up separately. The first one on the agenda, Senate nomination number 55, Larry Wayne Clark from Amory. And this term will be effective January 9th, will run concurrent with the governor's second term in office. This is the appointment for his 5th term on the board. And Deborah has just notified me that he has filed the statement of economic interest. You'll see on your report, it indicates that that had not been filed. That's already been taken care of. The bond is actually in process now. Before I bring either of these up on the floor, I'll make sure that those two housekeeping items are taken care of for both of these nominees, both the statement of economic interest and the bond. But I want to talk to you just a minute about information that was discovered by Pierre. On the second page, it says potentially derogatory information. There are 2 federal tax liens. And I called yesterday and had a conversation with Mr. Clark about these liens. And after my conversation, I feel okay about it. And I want to explain to the committee my findings on this. As you can see from the report, the tax liens were not against him individually, but against his dealership. And what happened, he is required, at one point was required to handle the 941 filings for his business monthly. But as the payroll liabilities increased, they were supposed to change to being weekly filers. The bookkeeping process didn't keep up with the notice that the federal government provided. So there was some lag time in changing the frequency of those filings from monthly to weekly. So as soon as he discovered that, he remedied the problem immediately. But by that time, a lien had been recorded against his business. But that was his explanation to me. He says he is just as embarrassed as he can be about the situation. As you can see, the first tax year that was involved was 2013. So it's been some time ago. My understanding from talking to him is he had never had any issues like this prior to 2013, nor since that time. So I run multiple businesses myself, and I know sometimes things like that can come up, but it was not his refusal to pay taxes. It was just the matter of a frequency and how he was paying his 941 taxes. So with that, I'm comfortable. But now to the committee, does anybody have any reservations about that or any hesitation or question? Senator Williams, you recognize.
I guess just to say it another way, it was an administrative error, not a malicious or intentional error. I also have businesses and have made similar mistakes with fewer zeros.
That's a very good way to put it. My understanding, it was just an accounting process internally that needed to be changed a little bit. It just wasn't done so very timely. So it resulted in a tax lien.
Yeah, I agree. That should not be a derogatory.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns about that? Yes, Senator Bryan, you're recognized.
Well, first of all, Madam Chairman, I would just like to say that I believe this was something that raised a question, and by calling the individual and getting an answer to the question, I think you proceeded properly, and I would say thank you to the chair for doing that. Based on your conversation with Mr. Clark, it seems certainly an understandable thing, and it was 10 years ago. And I know Mr. Clark. He's a friend. He's what we would call a good, solid person. I think he'd do a good job, is doing a good job, and would do a good job on this commission. I've always known that Mr. Clark was a successful businessman. And now that I know that he is required to file withholding taxes on a weekly basis, he's even more successful than I realized. But I would make a motion if you're
recognized.
I move do advise and consent.
All in favor? Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. Our next nomination to take up is Senate Nomination 56, Mr. Gary McGrubbs. There was no derogatory information in the file other than he needs to file a statement of economic interest, which I understand that is in process now. We're reminding him, and we have let him know this won't be taken up on the floor until that matter is handled. Are there any questions on this nomination? Yes, Senator Blackman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. How about his oath? It says they located no oath.
So we understand that is also in process, and I believe on this one, the oath has been It's just not been filed with the Secretary of State. I believe part of the paperwork is handled, but it is in process. But again, I'll make sure that this is handled before we bring it up on the floor.
Thank you, Madam
Thank you for
Chair.
the question. Any other questions? Do I have a motion? All in favor? Any opposed? That motion will carry. Do I have a final motion? Thank you very much.